Imagine a capital city where the citizens outnumber the humans 300 to 1. A place where the rush hour traffic isn't cars, but thousands of tuxedoed residents waddling down a highway they built themselves. You are standing in the most remote capital of the South Atlantic, a town of just 3,000 people surrounded by an empire of 1 million penguins. This isn't just a story about a frozen rock in the ocean. It is the story of two parallel civilizations living side by side. One fighting to maintain modern life with hospitals, hotels, and printing presses at the edge of the world, and the other a chaotic, noisy, and ruthless society of birds that truly own this land. Welcome to the Falkland Islands, or as the locals know it, the ultimate test of endurance. But before we face the millions of penguin residents waiting in the wild, we must understand the tiny fortress of humanity that stands against the wind. The Falklands is not one island. It is an archipelago of over 770 scraps of land scattered across 4,700 square miles of the wildest ocean on Earth. Yet almost the entire human population is huddled into a single town, Stanley. Why would anyone choose to live here, nearly 8,000 miles away from the motherland of the UK? As you walk the streets of Stanley, the first thing that hits you is not the sight, but the smell. It is a sweet, smoky scent that hangs in the air, the smell of burning peat. For generations, the locals have dug the earth itself to heat their homes against the biting Antarctic winds, a tradition that anchors them to the soil. The town looks like a colorful toy set dropped onto a rugged coastline with bright red, blue, and yellow roofs designed to cut through the gray mists. Here, in the only true city on the islands, about 2,500 people live, work, and survive. That leaves the rest of the vast territory, known simply as Camp, almost completely empty, home to perhaps fewer than 400 brave souls. But don't let the small size of Stanley fool you. This isn't a village, it is a micronation operating in a bubble. Because when you are this isolated, you cannot rely on a neighbor for help. You must have everything yourself. Consider the sheer logistical nightmare of running a modern society here. Take a walk down Ross Road, the town's spinal cord. You pass the Christ Church Cathedral, not famous for its size, but for the massive archway standing in front of it, made from the jawbones of two blue whales, a grim monument to the island's past history as a whaling station. Just down the road, you find the Malvina House Hotel, a beacon of surprising luxury. It boasts a spa and 4-star dining, but every plate of food served there represents a victory of supply chains over the ocean. That fresh banana in the West Store supermarket, it traveled 8,000 miles just to sit on that shelf. But the true lifeline of Stanley isn't the food, it's the King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, KEMH. This isn't just a clinic, it is the only safety net between life and death for thousands of miles. It's equipped with operating theaters and dental surgeries because there is no next town to drive to. If you suffer a major trauma that they cannot fix here, you are facing a terrifying 10-hour medical evacuation flight to Chile or the UK. Living here requires a specific kind of bravery, the knowledge that help is never close. Life here is a masterclass in self-sufficiency. There's a single print shop in town, the heartbeat of local gossip and news, churning out the Penguin news every Friday. In a digital world where internet is expensive and often spotty, relying on satellite links, the locals still crave the tactile feel of paper. The Friday paper is the social glue. It's how you know who is selling a Land Rover, who had a baby, and what decisions the government house has made. And then there's the post office, perhaps the most ironic building in Stanley. While email exists, the Falklands is famous globally not for what it sends out, but for the stamps themselves. Philately is a massive industry here, with collectors paying fortunes for little squares of paper from the end of the world. From the cozy warmth of the Victory Bar to the solitude of the governor's house, Stanley feels safe. It feels tamed. But this safety is an illusion. Stanley covers less than 1% of the land. The moment you step past the last paved road, the rules change. Leaving the paved comfort of Stanley requires a shift in mindset. You don't just drive out of town, you embark on an expedition into the camp. The roads quickly degrade from asphalt to gravel and eventually to mere tracks in the peat that threaten to swallow 4x4 vehicles whole. Out here, the human population plummets. While thousands live in Stanley, the vast expanses of East and West Falkland are inhabited by fewer than 400 people, scattered across farms so remote that neighbors interact via radio more often than in person. So how do these 400 people survive? How do they get a doctor or mail or a fresh loaf of bread? They don't drive, they fly. Enter the Figas, the Falkland Islands Government Air Service. This is the subway system of the islands, but instead of trains, it's a fleet of red Britain Northern Islander planes. These distinctive red aircraft are the lifeblood of the camp. They are the school buses, the ambulances, the mail trucks, and the taxis all rolled into one. The pilots here are legendary, landing on grass strips, beaches, and muddy paddocks in winds that would ground a commercial airliner. Every evening, the radio announces the flight schedule for the next day, listing the passengers by name. It's a community bound together by the airwaves, where everyone knows exactly who is moving where. This infrastructure exists to support the other great industry of the islands, sheep. Before the penguins became the stars of tourism, the Falklands was built on wool. There are over 500,000 sheep on these islands. That's 160 sheep for every human. Drive through the endless treeless landscape and you will see the white dots of the flocks against the green and brown hills. The life of a shepherd here is one of profound solitude. You might live on a station of 20,000 acres, managing the livestock with only your dogs and your horse or motorcycle for company. The shearing sheds are cathedrals of wool, massive structures where, once a year, the silence is broken by the frantic activity of shearing gangs. It's a hard, gritty life, battling the elements to produce some of the finest wool in the world. But even the sheep know their place. They graze warily because they share the pastures with a civilization that is louder, smellier, and infinitely more crowded. As the sheep fade into the background and you approach the coast at Volunteer Point, the noise begins to rise. You are entering the Panguan capital. If Stanley is the administrative center, this is the biological metropolis. Here, the penguins don't just live, they rule. The most regal of these citizens are the king penguins, standing nearly a meter tall with flashes of bright orange gold on their necks. They don't run from visitors, they stand their ground with the arrogance of aristocracy. In this colony alone, over 1,000 breeding pairs congregate. The sound is a physical force, a wall of trumpeting calls that allows parents and chicks to find each other in the crushing mob. And it is a mob. Unlike the solitary shepherds nearby, king penguins rely on extreme density for survival. They organize their society into a strict nursery system known as a creche. The brown, fluffy chicks, looking like oversized kiwis in fur coats, humorously called oakum boys by the early sailors, are herded together in massive groups to stay warm. The rule here is absolute. A parent returning from the ocean with a stomach full of fish will ignore the desperate cries of thousands of starving chicks to find their exact offspring. They navigate the chaos using a unique vocal fingerprint. It is a level of social complexity that rivals any human city, enforced not by police, but by the brutal necessity of winter survival. You can watch the drama unfold, a chick begging the wrong adult for food, only to be pecked away violently. There is no charity in the colony, only family. But if the kings are the aristocracy standing around in plazas, the Gentoo penguins are the blue-collar workers, and they have built the infrastructure to prove it. Walk further along the coast, and you will see physical scars on the landscape, long, winding dirt paths carved through the tall tussock grass. These are the penguin highways. They aren't natural trails, they are engineering feats worn down by millions of webbed feet over centuries. The Gentoos commute. They're on a strict 9-to-5 schedule. Every single day, thousands of them march from their inland nests to the ocean to fish, and then march back up steep hills at night. And just like in human traffic, there are rules. If you are a human visitor standing near a highway, you do not cross if a commute is in progress. The penguin has the right of way, always. If you stand in the path, they will not go around you. They will stop and stare, creating a bottleneck. You become the traffic jam. They move with a frantic, comical determination, heads bobbing, racing against the sunset and the predators lurking in the water. In this city, there is no unemployment, Every citizen is fishing, brooding, or building, and the penalty for laziness is starvation. While the Gentoos manage the roads, the city has a criminal element. Meet the striated caracara, locally known as the Johnny Rook. These aren't your average seagulls. They are highly intelligent, dark-feathered birds of prey that act like street thugs. They are incredibly curious and utterly fearless. If you put your camera bag down, a Johnny Rook will zip it. If you leave a sandwich unattended, it's gone. They have been known to steal hats, gloves, and even red objects that catch their eye. They are the pickpockets of the Falklands, hopping around tourists with a mischievous glint in their eyes, testing every zipper and button to see what they can loot. They are rare globally, almost extinct in other parts of the world, but here they thrive on the fringes of the penguin colonies, waiting to steal an egg or scavenge a carcass. Meanwhile, another faction of the Panguinian civilization has gone underground. Step carefully as you move through the tussock grass, because the ground beneath your feet is not solid, it is a hollow honeycomb. You have entered the territory of the Magellanic penguins, the miners of the Falklands. Unlike their cousins who stand proudly in the open wind, the Magellanics are shy, burrowing deep into the peat soil to escape the harsh weather and the aerial bombardment of skuas and giant petrels. This creates a hidden danger for any human explorer. One wrong step can collapse the roof of a burrow, sending you plunging leg first into an angry penguin's living room. These jackass penguins, named for their loud donkey-like braying, haunt the nights with their calls. As the sun sets, the ground seems to come alive with their wailing, creating a ghostly atmosphere around the coastlines. They live in a sprawling subterranean city, a massive network of tunnels where they raise their young in total darkness. Safety is a relative term in the Falklands. While the burrows offer some protection, the true danger lies where the land meets the sea. If the penguins are the citizens, the seals are the titans that patrol the borders. Down on the sandy shores of Sea Lion Island and Elephant Beach, the scale of life changes dramatically. Here, you will find the southern elephant seals, colossal beasts that can weigh up to 4 tons, heavier than a large SUV, and far more dangerous. They lie in heaps like massive breathing boulders, groaning and belching in a display of sheer sloth. But do not be deceived by their sluggishness. During the breeding season, the breeding masters, the dominant males, engage in bloody, earth-shaking battles for control of the harem, slamming their massive bodies together with a force that can be heard for miles. They are the immovable objects of the coastline. Just a few yards away, the South American sea lions patrol the surf. If the Gentoo penguins are the commuters, the sea lions are the muggers. They surf the waves, hiding in the foam, waiting for the penguins to return from their fishing trips. It is a brutal ambush. A penguin will survive a whole day in the deep ocean, only to be snatched just feet from the safety of the shore. But the ocean here holds beauty as well as terror. Look past the breakers, and you might see the flash of black and white that isn't a penguin. These are the Commerson's dolphins, often called panda dolphins due to their distinct markings. They're small, energetic, and love to surf the bow waves of boats. They bring a playfulness to these freezing waters, darting among the kelp forests. And further out, the true giants. The waters around the Falklands are a highway for sei whales, fin whales, and orcas. The orcas in particular are the supreme rulers here, the top of the food chain, capable of taking down even the massive elephant seals. This ocean is not empty. It is a crowded, competitive arena where size and speed determine who survives the night. To see the final layer of this empire, you must look up toward the jagged cliffs of the west. This is the domain of the black-browed albatross, the undisputed kings of the air. The Falklands are home to over 70% of the world's population of these magnificent birds. They do not build burrows or march on highways. They construct high-rise apartments on the steepest, most inaccessible cliffs imaginable. With a wingspan of 8 feet, longer than a basketball player is tall, they are masters of the wind, gliding for hours without a single flap. Their colonies are a marvel of coexistence shared with the rockhopper penguins. These rockhoppers are the adrenaline junkies of the bird world. Defying gravity, they hop up vertical cliff faces, wet from the sea, risking death with every jump just to nest among the albatrosses. It is a vertical city where the rent is paid in struggle. As the sun begins to dip below the endless horizon of the South Atlantic, casting long shadows across the peat bogs, you are left with a lingering question: who does this place actually belong to? In the history books, the answer is complicated, but out here, the answer feels laughably simple. The humans, the resilient kelpers who have built their colorful homes in Stanley, who keep the printing presses running and the hospital lights on, are merely the caretakers. They are the stubborn, admirable tenants of a landlord that speaks not in words, but in squawks, roars, and the howling of the wind. The 3,000 people here have carved out a miracle of comfort. They have their FIGAS planes, their Friday newspapers, and their warm pubs, but they know, perhaps better than anyone, that they exist here only because nature allows it. When you drive back from the penguin colonies, navigating the treacherous tracks as the light fades, you realize that the capital of Penguin Town never sleeps. While the residents of Stanley are tucking into their beds, the beaches are alive. The Gen 2 highways are still busy with late-night commuters. The elephant seals are still groaning in the darkness. The Johnny Rooks are still looking for something to steal. The millions of birds and beasts that call this archipelago home do not care about sovereignty or flags. They care about the fish in the water and the wind in their wings. They have built a civilization here that has lasted for millennia, far longer than any human settlement. So why travel all this way? Why endure the 18-hour flights in the biting cold? Because in a world that is increasingly paved, predictable, and tamed, the Falkland Islands offer something that is becoming extinct: true wildness. It is a place where you can stand in the middle of a million penguins and feel completely outnumbered, yet completely at peace. As you board the plane to leave, looking down once last time on the scattered islands that look like broken puzzle pieces floating in the sea, you realize that you are leaving two capitals. One is Stanley, the brave little city of people clinging to the edge of the world. The other is the wild, chaotic, and magnificent capital of the penguins, the true empire of the South Atlantic. And as the islands disappear into the clouds, you know that down there, on the beaches and the cliffs, the business of the Penguinian nation continues, loud and proud, just as it always has.